Welcome back, everyone. Here's section 7.2 notes, the quadratic formula. Remember that you need to be in the standard form of the quadratic formula, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. Remember, a cannot equal 0. And here's the breakdown of what the quadratic formula actually entails. It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So, going straight into example 1. Example 1 says negative x, parentheses, x minus 6, close the parentheses, equal to 11. When looking at this problem, it's not in the standard form. So first thing we need to do is get it to standard form. You're going to distribute. You become negative x squared plus 6x equals 11. Then you need to make sure that the 11 joins the other side. So you're going to subtract 11 to both sides, and you become negative x squared plus 6x minus 11 equal to 0. At this point, we notice that we are in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. Identify your a value. In this instance, a is a negative 1, b is a positive 6, and c is a negative 11. We're going to take our equation, so it's x equals negative b plus and minus square root b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. First thing I did is I wrote my equation. And now I'm going to substitute the values of b, a, and c into the equation. So it says x equals negative, and in parentheses, I'm going to stick a positive 6, just in case the b value happened to be a negative number. Then it goes plus minus square root. I'm going to put the 6 in parentheses power of 2 minus 4 times negative 1 in parentheses times a negative 11 in parentheses, and divide that all by 2 times my negative 1. We continue, and we're going to say x equals negative 6 plus minus. Do the math inside. Well, 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times a negative 1, negative, that's positive 4. But then you're going to multiply by a negative number. So I become negative 44. All over 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2. Before you can do anything with the radical, you need to do the math inside. So we have x equals negative 6 plus minus the square root. I had $36, but I spent 44. I am short 8 over negative 2. Looking at this problem right now, we notice that our x value, this value right here, is going to cause us to have an imaginary value. So we become x equals negative 6 plus minus the number 8. I'm going to rewrite it as 4, square root of 4, square root of 2, square root of negative 1. The reason I wrote it as 4 times 2 is 8, times the negative 1, there's my negative 8. Do the math by breaking out the 4 down here. So we have x equals negative 6 plus minus. Now it's 2. Then remember, definition of radical numbers. Negative 1 is, square root of negative 1 is an I value. Radical 2. And then I'm going to divide both pieces by the value of negative 2. So then you end up being x equals positive 3. Because I'm doing plus minus divided by a negative, I'm still going to be plus minus. The 2's are going to cancel out, leaving you with I radical 2. Example 2, our first word problem, says a truck travels south from Hartselle, Alabama to Birmingham, Alabama, along I-65. It then heads east to Atlanta, Georgia, along I-20. The reason I underlined travel south and heads east is because they're directions. The next part of the problem says the distance from Birmingham to Atlanta is 8 miles less than twice the distance from Hartselle to Birmingham. The distance from Hartselle to Atlanta is 165 miles. They want us to find the distance from Hartselle to Birmingham and then from Birmingham to Atlanta. And they want us to round to the nearest mile. A key piece of information they give you that says that the distance from Birmingham to Atlanta is 8 miles less than twice the distance. 8 miles less than twice the distance. And that the distance from Hartselle to Atlanta is 165 miles. I'm going to use a pictorial graph of a triangle here, but it said the truck head south, started here, went south, and then went east. So we have a right triangle. It says that the distance from, started at Hartselle, then went south to Birmingham, and then went east to Atlanta. It said that the distance from Hartselle to Atlanta is 165 miles. The other thing they said is that the distance from Birmingham to Atlanta is 8 less than twice from Hartselle to Birmingham. So from Hartselle to Birmingham is going to be your x, because that's a basic value. And then the other part says it's 8 less than twice. So it means it's twice the distance minus 8. We have to refer back to our geometry days. Because we have a right triangle and there are 3 sides given, we have to use the Pythagorean Theorem, which says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm going to replace, remember your legs are a and b, and then always the hypotenuse value is always going to be the c value. So we're going to stick x squared plus 2x minus 8 squared equal to your 165 squared. Here we are going to make it x squared. Here you're going to apply the rules of your perfect square trinomials, which say square the first position. So 2x and I squared becomes 4x squared. You multiply your a and b parts. So 2x times 8 is 16. And then double it becomes negative 32x. And then the back end is where you square the 8. So 8 squared is positive 64. Then you're going to square 165. And we get 27,225. We get to this point. We need to first combine our like terms. So we have x and x squared plus another 4 makes it 5x squared minus 32x plus 64 equaling our 27,225. You want to make sure that it's set equal to 0 because we want to be able to use the quadratic formula. So we're going to subtract the 27,225 over to the left side. So we become 5x squared minus 32x minus 27,161 set equal to 0. So quadratic formula, remember, identify your a, b, and c. So the a value is a 5, the b value is a negative 32, and the c value in this instance is being negative 27,161. I'm going to start again by writing my equation. X equals negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Now, since we're finding distance is a unit of measurement, I'm not going to use the plus minus anymore. I'm just going to write it as x equals negative b plus the square root b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And now we're going to substitute. So we have x equals negative. The b value is a negative 32. Negative 32 squared minus 4 times 5 times your negative 27,161, all divided by 2 times your 5. So we get negative and negative makes it positive 32. You have to do 32 squared. And we get 1,024. Now it gets negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Negative 20 times another negative makes it positive. So we're going to do 20 times 27,161, making it 543,220. All divided by 2 times 5, which is 10. We are going to simplify inside. So we're going to add 1024 to our 543220 gives us 544,244, all divided by 10. We are going to take the square root of our 544,224. And it gives us 544,244. 32 plus 738, I rounded up, one to the whole number, divided by 10. So we have 738 plus our 32, divided by 10, results in 77. So X is 77. Now the problem said it wanted the distance values from each of the places. So they wanted us to find the distance from Hartselle to Atlanta, distance from Hartselle to Birmingham. So Hartselle to Birmingham is our X value, and that is 77. And then from Birmingham to Alabama, which is our 2X minus 8. So we're going to do 2 times 77 minus 8. So 77 doubled is 154 minus 8, which means it's 146 miles. Welcome back. So we're trying to find using the discriminant to determine the number of solutions and type of solutions to a quadratic equation. So remember, ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0 is your standard form. The discriminant is actually the b squared minus 4ac, which is the portion under the radical of the quadratic formula. Some basic key features. If b squared minus 4ac happens to be greater than 0 when you do the math, you have two real solutions. If b squared minus 4ac equates to an answer of 0, then you have one real solution, which means we have a double root. If b squared minus 4ac results being less than 0, which means it's negative, your resulting answer is negative, you have two imaginary solutions. So you're going to use this information to figure out what are discriminant values, how many solutions do these examples have. So example A says 2x squared minus 5x plus 9 equal to 0. First thing, our A value is a 2, the B is a negative 5, and C is a 9. I'm running on my equation, b squared minus 4ac, an underscore, and then 0. And the reason I did the underscore is because I don't know if my answer is going to be greater than, less than, or equal to 0. We're going to substitute in, so negative 5 squared minus 4 times 2 times a positive 9. Remember, a negative in a parentheses squared becomes positive 25. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, and a negative times another positive is still negative 72. This results in a negative result piece right here because I had $25, but I spent 72, resulting in negative 47, which happens to be less than 0. So for this answer, we have two imaginary solutions. On B, we need to first move everything to one side. So I'm going to add x and subtract 2. So we become 3x squared plus x minus 2 equaling 0. Again, identify your A, B, and C. So our A is a 3, B is a 1, C is a negative 2. And we substitute into the formula b squared minus 4ac. We don't know what our answer is, so I underscored to 0. We substitute in, so it's going to be 1 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 2. 1 squared is still 1. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12, and then a negative 12 times a negative 2 makes it positive 24, where 25 is greater than 0. So we have two real solutions. On C, I use decimals because you know I don't like giving you guys easy problems. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to move everything to one side. So I'm going to add 1.2x over, add the 0.1. So we get 3.6x squared plus 1.2x plus 0.1 equal to 0. Now remember, I said if you don't like working with decimals and fractions, get rid of them. So notice the decimal place value. It's one decimal place for all of them. Since they are in the tenths place, you're going to multiply everything by 10. So we become 36x squared plus 12x plus 1 equal to 0. So now you're dealing with whole numbers. So A is a 36, B is a 12, C is a 1. Again, your equation, b squared minus 4ac underscore 0. B happens to be a 12 squared minus 4 times a 36 times a 1 underscore 0. 12 squared is 144. Negative 4 times positive 36 is a negative 144 times a 1 is still negative 144. So we get 0 equals 0. So we have one real solution, which means it's a double root. Example 4 says f of x equals x squared minus 3x plus 1. In this problem, they want us to first find the discriminant to determine if it is has any x-intercepts. B, find the x-intercepts if they exist. And C, find the y-intercepts. So we're going to start part A. On A, we take our original equation, which says f of x equals x squared minus 3x plus 1. We're going to identify our A, B, and C. A is a 1, B is a negative 3, and C is a 1 as well. But it says to determine what is the discriminant. So b squared minus 4ac underscore 0. We want to know how many solutions we have. B was a negative 3 that we are squaring, minus 4 times a, which is a 1, and c, which is a 1. Remember, negative 3 is in parentheses, so when you square, it becomes positive. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, times another 1 is still negative 4. So we have 5 happens to be greater than 0, so we have 2 real solutions. So now that leads us to part B. B says find your x-intercepts. So part B, we're going to use the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus and minus b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So negative, and the b happens to be a negative 3 plus and minus. Now, the b squared minus 4ac, we've already figured out that answer. The answer is 5. So I'm just going to write square root of 5 all over 2 times my 1. Negative times a negative makes it positive 3, plus and minus square root of 5 over 2. There are our x-intercepts. We have 2 of them. Then part C says find your y-intercepts. So you take your original equation, which says f of x equals x squared minus 3x plus 1. And remember back in chapter 2, chapter 3, when we were talking about graphing linear equations, y-intercepts, to find the y-intercept, you're going to make the x values equal to 0. So f of x, we're plugging in a 0 for the x, 3 times another 0, plus a 1. So we have 0 minus a 0 plus a 1. So our f of x value is a 1. So our y-intercept is at 0, 1. So for our last example, it says solve using any method. And of course, I was going to pick a fraction problem. So it says 1/4 x squared minus 1/2 x plus 1/3 equal to 0. Remember, if you don't like working with fractions, get rid of them. First thing you want to do is look at your denominators. So I see a 4, a 2, and a 3. And I look for an LCD. The LCD in this instance is 12 because 4, 2, and 3 all go into the number 12. In order to get rid of your fractions, multiply every single piece by 12. And I didn't bother putting a 12 on this side because 12 times 0 is still going to be 0. So 12 times 1 is 12, divided by 4 makes it 3x squared, minus 12 times 1 is 12, divided by 2 is a 6 with an x, plus 12 times 1 is 12, divided by 3 is a 4 equal to 0. Now we have our A, B, and C. So you can either use completing the square or the quadratic formula. In this case, since I can figure out what my A, B, and C is, I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So A is a 3, B is a -6, and C is a 4. Take your equation, x equals negative b, plus and minus, b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So we have, we're going to use substitution, so it's negative, and in parentheses, -6. Again, -6 is going in parentheses, so you can square it. So it's -4 times R3 times R4, all over 2 times R3. Simplify your math here. So we have x equals a negative and a negative makes it +6, plus and minus. So -6 squared is a +36. And then we see -4 times 3, that is -12. And -12 times a +4 is -48 over 6. Just by looking at the math inside here, I'm losing money. So I'm going to be a negative in the radical. So I have x equals +6 plus and minus. I had $36 but spent 48. I am short 12 all over 6. This right here tells me that my parabola, when we get to that section, will be floating in the air because our discriminant happens to be less than 0. Here we are going to break down the -12. So I'm going to rewrite it as a +4 and the radical a +3 because 4 times 3 is our +12, and then our -1. Six comes down, plus and minus. Square root of 4 we know is a 2. That -1 in the radical, that is our imaginary I. And then radical 3 all over 6. Split this into 2 pieces so that you can reduce your fraction. So 6 over 6 plus minus 2i radical 3 over 6. So 6x equals 1 plus and minus I radical 3 over 3.